So this is somehow a continuation or not really about spatial poetry, which is very much connected to performance. And I would like to open some notions on poetry, but not really about poetry, and not really about performance, and not really about something in particular, but some themes that are, for me, contemporary and up to date. And yes, very strange name, spatial poetry. For me, this name arrives from the understanding of what is space, actually. And for me, space is a poetry. Like the space, literal physical space, is a poetry. And but space doesn't exist without movement. So, and movement for me is very much connected to image and imagination. So, because space and movement are one, they kind of create this spatial poetry. So spatial poetry is a kind of universal subject, and it's everyday subject, kind of very rural subject. And because it's connected to space and movement, it's very much into this performative thing. And actually about this bodily understanding. Like you can understand movement and you can understand space from only if you understand what is body and so on and so on. So I kind of opened this actually questions more than something else, than a theory. And this lecture will be about environment, maybe, in which art can exist. And usually I create my lectures from other people lectures or other people articles, which I intuitively meet during, I don't know, during my projects or during installation things or art. So it's not actually my kind of thoughts, but they very much fit into my perspective. Hello. So today I will touch some authors as Cocteau, which is talking about performance, and she's a contemporary philosopher, woman philosopher, and artist also. And I will talk about Pavel Florensky, which is a Russian priest from 19th century, actually, who combined art, spiritual realm, theatrical realm, physics, back to the early pre-revolutionary time in Russia, kind of very the guy who synthesized everything, and he has really interesting thoughts on the subject. And also I will talk from maybe some thoughts of Sikatsky, it's a Russian philosopher, and maybe some poets. But it's not actually about poets, and it's not about some particular poetry, it's just a general thing. Kind of connected to life for me. So, and now I think it's an important theme for me, because nowadays is a time of synthesis where we kind of, when the reality in itself merges everything together. It merges art, it merges science, it merges spiritual realm, it merges performance, and it's kind of you don't have to do something special to create. It's like your own life is a creation, and you're like a poet of your own poetry. That's why it's so easy maybe now to speak about it, because everyone understands many things. And in the previous lectures I talk about that, yeah, poetry, you are a poet and you poetically dwell and live your life. And poetry, as I said, connected to performance and to the way of living, like art of living your own life. And in that frame, the notion of presence, of what is presence, of what is body is important, becomes important. And how you kind of navigate through this material realm, and how you navigate through Maya, illusion, using your own poetry and your own way of understanding things, like kind of to make your way through this material realm as light as possible, and continuous and without stop. So that's why when I talk about the spatial poetry, I use quotes also from different dancers, of Buto dancers. Buto is a Japanese dance, knowing a lot about presence and know a lot about time and space. So, and there is one quote I really like from Minako Seki. It's a Japanese dancer. And she uses a technique called space in between. And the space in between is a lot about time and space. And she says that, metaphorically, she says that if we take 2 points, there is always the middle point in between these 2 points. And then if you take another 2 points, you can make another point in between. And then if you take these 2 points, you make another point in between. And you can go deeper and deeper and deeper, like continuously. It's kind of never-ending going in between. And actually these 2 points can be not something metaphorical or not something precise, as for example birth and death, and then your life is this kind of length, and then you have point in between, and you can kind of really take your life and go and kind of prolong the time of your life like as much as you want, making these points in between. Like you can split a second and go into the second, and then half of the second you can split. And this all is becoming available, as dancers well know, from if you kind of differentiate time, if you're present in time yourself, with your body and with your mind and with your thoughts and so on. So, or these 2 points, for example, if you're dancers or even if you're not dancers, you can use like 2 actions or 2 movements and go in between these 2 movements and kind of also prolong the space and expand life. And this understanding of space and time is very much Japanese and Asian and Chinese understanding of time, because in their philosophy they're not so much thinking about what will be after life, or they're not so much kind of waiting for help, or they're not living in the imaginary world. They're really kind of very precise in what is happening in this life. So instead of kind of thinking of prolongation, what will be after life, they're thinking of how to make this time, which you already have, expanded. And by meditation, by kind of small practices, by dance or by being aware, you kind of can prolong your own time. And I don't know, such agents as performance, poetry, or nature can help you to come into this space where you can actually allow yourself to prolong your own existence and kind of go deeper into it and, I don't know, nourish yourself. So this kind of metaphysical quote and understanding is, for me, very much connected with poetry, because poetry is an agent that actually cleans the space. So it's kind of an agent that can clean psychological or even physical space for us just to be and to feel. Like, for example, you go into the church or you go into some sacred building and there is a lot of free space and you can really breathe. Wow, you can allow yourself just to be, you can allow yourself to relax. So space is very important, because if there is no space, we can't move. And for me, poetry and this kind of pure spaces can allow you to kind of afford yourself to chill. So poetry can allow you to chill more in your life. So this is a cleaning agent. You can clean your own room and you will feel better. You can go into some sacred, I don't know, space and feel yourself better. Or you can clean your own psychological space so you can have more new thoughts, or you can have more free space in your own mind. So poetry really nice playing, like actor which plays with your internal and external environments. So as much it is nice when you have external environment which is pure and clean, as much it is necessary so your internal environment be spacious, have a lot of space inside. And for this you can have your own instruments like dance, I don't know, going into the nature, I don't know, spending time in meditation or like yoga classes, or just go on your couch and relax. That's also could be a sadhana, if we talk in these terms. But for me also this space is a poetry. Yeah, so this is kind of how space and poetry connects, and what is it actually, where we can go. Also, I would like to touch today the concept of animal, and animal as someone which in terms, like philosophical terms, is something the other, we call the other, and which is a potentiality of something that is artistic. So animalistic is a kind of an agent, or something that could be artistic because you finally can take off your human appearance, your human kind of way of understanding. And this is the term, the other, or animalistic, or animal, is kind of this metaphor for artistic also. Yeah, and I will talk about question of conditions which are necessary for a piece of art, that because piece of art is something that needs special environment for it to exist. And a really nice metaphor of compression in art. What is compression? And it's also connected to time-space. And maybe we try to understand what is, to whom we actually address the poetry, to whom we actually address our piece of art, or, I don't know, something we create. So this lecture also, as other lectures, is an improvisation and experiment for me. Experiment. And sometimes I will read what I don't have to say. And also I will take some time when I'm going to read things from my monitor. Sometimes I will speak, and in the end maybe we talk, or maybe questions will arrive if they're short ones, so we're not going too far. Yes. So the main thing also, as I think in the poster I've quote this artist and director from 20th century, from this Dadaistic environment, called Jean Cocteau, and he said, "I know that poetry is important, but I don't know why." So, and no one knows actually, because poetry as life is meaningless and useless, which means that you have to like your poetry and your life before its meaning and before the reason. So the main thing about poetry is that it's meaningless and useless, and completely. And the more it's meaningless and the more it's useless, the more it's kind of giving us space, because only things that are meaningless and useless can give us space. And that's what I was talking before about, that we need space, yes, to chill, to relax. Also movement, the more movement in your dance or in your everyday life, the more you're present in your own movement, the more movement is empty. And the more your movement is empty from some kind of notion, from some kind of idea or concept, the more it also cleaning the psychological space inside you, and the more it harmless to the external environment. So all this kind of empty movements or useless poetry actually creates space for us to move further, or just to have space around us to kind of be. And yesterday I was talking with Sasha, who is here and who is the director of Afterlife Spectacle, and also this very important theme, which kind of we also touched today. And we talk about that it's very nice that everywhere we have this hipsters places with all this very clean, very precise design, like really nice clothes, like all these coffee shops where you can go and there is a lot of space and everything is very neat, precise, and I don't know, the food is tasty and people looking good, they look healthy, and objects around you are beautiful, and so on and so on. But then there is this kind of emptiness, which is good because you feel good in such an environment, but also there is kind of metaphysical emptiness, which is more correlating to suffering. So you can be in the very nice space and enjoy it, but then there is this kind of, I will take too much, maybe talking too much, but it is like that. For me, I will be true in what I'm talking with myself. It's kind of a suffering that you could feel in even super nice designed spaces. And the suffering in some kind of, it's inside people, or it's kind of transparently exist in space. So everything could be nice, the form is super neat and cool, but there is this kind of suffering you feel. I don't know any other word for now, but it is there. So, and maybe the suffering is connected to the capitalistic realm we are living now, because capital is a kind of, as we know, even if we don't read Marx and we kind of living in this kind of environment, is somehow an animal that eats everything. It eats whatever you produce. You can produce a piece of art, it will be simultaneously just be eaten by the capital, because the art and the performance you produced exist inside of institution, or it exists inside of a capitalistic reality, which is automatically capitalized and automatically find itself in the kind of somewhere in the layer of hierarchy of existing institution. So, and it's okay, because that's how it works. It's like the end we find ourselves, the end where humanity finds itself now. And maybe capital is not so bad, at least when you have enough money, yes. It's not so hard. But how can we deal with it? And there is a lot of philosophers, and I'm not one of them, who are talking really good about this, like Zizek, or like, I don't know, many others. I'm not really a professor in philosophers. And sometime before I was investigating kind of the theme, and someone said that actually language is the only maybe instrument that can help to kind of deal with this notion of capital and the notion of environment, because this is the instrument of making things clear, and it's kind of clearing up, and it also creates space. So language is really powerful, because by saying something you can transfer things, and it's the only way we can actually influence reality, through the language and through clearing up things that we don't yet know, or the things that are not yet clear for us, or the things that actually can unite us. I don't know, not against something, maybe just unite, to chill in some empty space would be nice also. So philosopher or someone who works with the language, and philosophers usually work purely with the language. Also maybe artists who work with artistic language, or even with just language, they kind of now are the ones who are the agents that influence reality in some way or another. And they are important because they create their own mythology, and they are living by their own mythology. So they create language, and maybe philosophers create their own language and their own logic, and even maybe create new words. So they kind of make from their own life a mythological life, and live it. Also, artists do that a lot. And this kind of imaginary mythological realms are actually very, very real and very, very influencing others. That's kind of, yes, a dichotomy in poetry. Everyone thinks it's some abstract things are abstract, but actually abstract things are the most real. And the most real things are actually too much abstract because they're just playing. Like you see, I don't know, some kind of paysage, but actually you see not something real, not realism, but you see just a manipulation of something imaginary. Or you can see Kandinsky in its abstract painting can be very real and very really touching you. So these things are not so clear, yes? Hi. Yeah, so performance nowadays, as you could see, our performative practice is becoming more and more obvious because they kind of make an inversion of reality through the body. So, where we can find support, actually, if we can't find it anywhere, even in art and culture, because it automatically becomes capitalized or institutionalized, and it also becomes, in the museum soon, it becomes just something dead object on the wall, for example. You can find support in this emptiness, which you create yourself. And this kind of creation of space is also has the same quality as silence. It's kind of very supportive. When you sit with someone and someone is just silent, it kind of gives you space to just be. And in such moments, you can realize that not by bread alone, kind of, there is this something else here. And today I wanted just to read some interview of a woman of the Cocteau, but then I came up with this space thing, which are and Zen masters are really good with space. And before I was making this project called Flowers in the Sky, and this is a term, a phrase, which is talking about what I'm talking now. Flowers in the Sky, it's called. And this phrase was invented by Dogen master, which is a Zazen master from many, many centuries ago. And Flowers in the Sky is a translation from the word called kuge. And ku refers to the skies or space or emptiness, and ge refers to the flowers. So kuge means flowers in space or flowering in space, in emptiness. And metaphorically that means that all we perceive are kind of delusionary phantoms, like flowers in the sky. And maybe I will go too much abstract, but this is as much as you can abstract. You can decide how much you can take. So flowers in space cause both ground and space to unfold. And flowers in space refer to the manifestation of spirituality, because spirituality is the emergence of love, which comes out of nothingness. It does cause effects and provides the condition for things. And these consequences are both tangible and spiritual. They are tangible in that love inspires concrete action. And they are spiritual because love inspires more love. So you see, love is not some kind of love. I'm talking love is this space, which is metaphysical. So this space of love creates more space of love, and it also inspires you for some very concrete action. And that's what this phrase, flowers in space, cause both the ground, material realm, and the space to unfold. So the formless, which is love, and love is formless, creates movement in forms. And this is the principle of life, which is different from the principle of physics, because life is metaphysical. So what I'm talking about is that there is this realm and there is this realm which is without forms, and actually this realm which is without forms makes the realm of forms to move. None has understood reliance on space. How much less could any understand reliance on the ground? In other words, there are many people who discourse on emptiness and talk about the emptiness of phenomena. Yes, Buddhists like to talk about emptiness of everything we see is kind of empty. So they do not understand that this refers to the unconditional action. You know, unconditional action. What is unconditional action? Action that you do which is meaningless, yes? You love someone not because of something. This is the most easiest example. So unconditional action. This is the emptiness of phenomena. They do not see how spirit affects action amongst concrete things and how action amongst concrete things affects spirit. The action that comes out of nothing, which is to say one that is unconditional, is the heart of the matter. Heart of the matter. The modern person reading real human body thinks of something physical. However, this is not the meaning, except in as much as we have already seen that the physical movement in the concrete world is the effect of spiritual flowers in space. That space is the real human body, and in it, flowers are always opening. Okay, this was Zen.